Johnson up ahead. Look out. Hello. Amari Stoudemire elevates and detonates.
And welcome in, Planeteers. This is we are back, and Jake is not here, so um, don't complain. I'm gonna be your host here to practice my hosting skills, especially for Tuesday. But with me, the Boston Bruiser, Bruce. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Kevin. Always glad to be talking about the Suns and a different week. You were absent last week. We were all riding this major high, and now we're all coming back down to earth. So it's going to be a good episode to break down this Suns team today.
You know what? Maybe the Suns doesn't need two Kevins because when I was away last week, the Suns were on a three-game winning streak, and then I come back, and then here we are, goes back to shit all of a sudden. But yes, Planeteers, I was out. I'm sorry, but I did some sensual salute post-game video. Better check that out. And before we begin, because Jake always forgets, right? Buy us coffee, buy us beers. Down in the description below, and hit that like and subscribe button. Obviously helps us out. Yeah, and the announcement that we have made yesterday. If you have missed that, and Jake kind of actually teased this a week ago, that we will have the one and only, the current voice of the Sun, in TV play by play, Kevin Ray, K Ray, Mister. I don't want to say pure energy, but but K Ray will be with us next week, or it will be shown next week, but will be recorded this Tuesday. So if you have some questions, go ahead and you know put them on the comment section. There's a post on YouTube. You can comment down there. King Nacho actually left a comment to ask Bradley Beal, and you'd be the judge, Bruce. Shall we ask that to K Ray? Have you seen that comment?
No, I have not, but we'll definitely have to look at
Okay.
that comment and kind of
Well,
analyze
let me read it to you.
it.
Let me just pull it up. It's funny when I saw it. Here we go. So, question for K Ray: if you could trade anyone on this roster, who would it be, and why is it Beal? Oh my goodness, King Nacho, you are the man. And what's up, fellas, in the chat? We have Michael, P, and Matt, our friend over there at the UK. Matt, thank you very much always for tuning in. I'm still waiting for your invite, Matt. I didn't forget about that. How desperate am I? But anyway, like I said, Jake is not here, so you guys can't complain that I'm the host, and Bruce is here with me. We're gonna co-host this thing. We're gonna be helping out each other. And the Suns, after the four-game winning streak, we've hit rock bottom once again. We were 1-3, if I'm not mistaken, a win against the Bucks, and then two back-to-back bad losses against the Celtics and the Minnesota Timberwolves. So we're gonna go ahead and break down the first win, or the first game of the week, which was apparently the last time that we had fun, that we will be having fun over the course of the week, right?
Yep.
Against the Milwaukee Bucks. So for the Bucks, let's start with the Bucks here. Giannis Antetokounmpo. I didn't watch the game as a whole because I fell asleep. But, was coming off of work, so it's really tough. So 31 points and 10 rebounds and 5 assists for Giannis. He led the team, that Bucks team, and then Brooke Lopez with 23 and 10, and Kyle Kuzma with 15 and 4 assists. Now for the Phoenix Suns, going to our own team, 38 points from Kevin Durant, of course, and 19 points for Devin Booker. Of course, that final 2 points was the nail in the coffin. And then Ryan Dunn added 12 with Nick Richards with 10 and 10. So, Bruce, what's your takeaway on this game?
Um, I really, really liked what the Stars were able to do in this game for the Phoenix Suns. You mentioned Kevin Durant going off for 38 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, really taking care of being that number one option, getting to his spots for this Phoenix Suns team, specifically versus a team in the Milwaukee Bucks who have Giannis Antetokounmpo, someone who can kind of combat Kevin Durant as well, right? We saw the Suns also, try their best on defense with Giannis, with Ryan Dunn, Nick Richards. Didn't work to them in the best in the first half, but started getting better throughout the game. And you mentioned Devin Booker, a quiet second half, I believe, only had 4 points in that second half. But man, oh man, hits that game winner, gets right to his spot in the mid range, and just gets a wide open look, and it is cash. Once again, this was kind of a game where you saw the Suns get a little bit of revenge for those 2021 finals, and it kind of boosted that, I guess, hope for this squad once again, because you see them beat some bad teams. You see them beat the Cavs. Now they beat the Bucks. They're looking like they're a little bit on a roll. They can kind of get some things going, and it looked like on both sides of the floor that could be done. But as we saw through the rest of the week, unfortunately, that was not the case.
Yeah, we thought we were back, ladies and gentlemen. We thought, this was something, or this was the start of something that's going to be special, going into the play-in. But no, we were wrong. So, as much as we don't like to talk about the next two games, we have to, right? But my main takeaway of this game is that Kevin Durant is still magnificently brilliant.
Yes.
We're running out of basically adjectives to describe the man. 38 points and 7 of 9 from three. Imagine that. That's 77%, almost 78% from three. So definitely Kevin Durant won us this game, but Devin Booker put the finishing touches, as you've mentioned, that beautiful step back to get away from Brooke Lopez to, uh, you know, win the game. Obviously, we wanted the three to make, little things more comfortable. I'm not complaining, it's a win, right? But in this day and age, the 3-point shooting is a big thing that, if you don't have a 3-point lead, then you're not safe, even in the dying seconds of the game. Don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And for the Suns, it was a little bit of trying to kind of figure that out, right? Because we saw in this last possession, right? This it was a tie game. It was, back and forth between both of these teams where Giannis and Antetokounmpo and this Bucks scoring increasingly down low on this Suns squad. So having them be able to kind of find to get to that spot was nice. Like you mentioned, I would have liked if, I guess they could have went for a 3-pointer, kind of build that lead a little bit more to kind of get them a little bit more insurance. But it was nice to see that
Yeah.
regardless of the fact that with the game on the line, they went to the right guy to get the basket.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I want to expand more on this game, right? Well, not the game, but the particular player over at the other side of the Bucks. Now, this became a topic like a few years back when James Harden said, he's all tall and he just dunks on people. Do you think? Let's bring back the memories. Do you think Giannis Antetokounmpo is a skilled player?
So I think that there's a lot to go into the definition of skilled. I would say that he definitely is talented and is skilled. I do agree that obviously his game is kind of just bulldozing to the basket, using his
Right.
power, using his size to kind of abuse that to find his way to generate points. And I feel like there is some skill in that, I guess, because he is where he had to, I guess, use his body or learn how to use his body to kind of figure out to be able to be such an impactful force of a driving lane. But I do understand where Suns fans do come from due to the fact that it is, kind of wild to see the foul differencing with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And we saw that in this game as well, which I know is another kind of glaring issue with a lot of people comparing his skill set to how much he gets help.
Yeah, and I think as well that Giannis, like you said, it takes some skill to get into the paint, right? Use your body, contort, and all that stuff. But I think Giannis have developed as well, like a 3-point shooting, although not consistent. But you're right, just getting into the paint is actually more skill because you can get into the paint and bang bodies, but can't
Yep.
finish. And we
Mhm.
had that in Nurkic. I hate to say it, but we had that in Nurkic. But yeah, I think Giannis is an incredible player. I do think though that he's quite dirty in some ways. when he does use his force.
Yep.
But let's move on. Let's not talk about Giannis anymore. But we're gonna talk about him next week because they're gonna face the Suns once again there in Milwaukee. But yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. We have the Boston Celtics and Bruce. You know, take take this one away because you're a two-faced fan. No, I'm kidding. You cover the
No, yeah.
Celtics as well.
Uh-huh.
So go ahead and expand. Go on with this game.
Yeah, so going into this game, I was kind of expecting this type of performance. I thought it'd be a little bit closer. I thought it'd be, maybe like an 8 or 10 point game, but seeming how the Suns play and seeing how the Celtics play, it would be a little bit obvious on how this game was going to go. We saw the Suns allowing the Celtics to shoot those wide open threes, playing that drop coverage once again, something this defense is usually accustomed to in these moments. And that was just giving the Celtics wide open threes. Then once the Celtics were beating the three, they were then using all those passes with driving to the lane and backdoor cutting to just completely abuse this Suns team and make them look like Swiss cheese. Nick Richards was not the best fit for this Suns squad, in my opinion, to be starting. Oso Godaro looked better with their 5-out offense, and Mike Budenholzer didn't make that change at halftime. And as Kevin and I discussed before, we kind of went live. That third quarter is where the Suns kind of lost this lead. That's where the Celtics kind of really bludgeoned it and took over. And all this is to mention that the Celtics did this without arguably their best player in Jason Tatum and beat the Suns by 30 points. So it just goes to show you once again that even though the Suns had these nice strings of wins over these last couple of stretches, that the Celtics are in a league of their own. And regardless if the Suns, could hold close or not, a lot of these teams that go up against this Celtics squad kind of get this type of treatment. So I think a lot of Suns fans were a little bit overreactionary in the loss. Yes, it was a blowout loss, but it was a great team. But clearly there were some repercussions from that game that followed into the next.
Right. Well, want to highlight what you said there. Boston is just in a league of their own, and you're right. I mean, I wasn't expecting for the Suns to come in and win this game,
Yep.
but I didn't expect a 30-point, beatdown as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
But you could kind of clearly see what was lacking with the Suns earlier in the first quarter. Right, they were giving up a lot of 3-point shots. Kristaps Porzingis, I think, had 8 in the first quarter. I might be wrong on that,
Yep.
but he was already hitting shots. And as you've mentioned, Nick Richards was not probably at least this game was not the best fit in that center position
Mm-hmm.
because of the switching and the drop coverage that the Celtics play. Obviously, Kristaps and Al Horford. I didn't think Al Horford had a did he have a 3-point shot on that first quarter? I think he had one,
Um,
but
I don't know if it went in, but I know that uh he finished with 2 threes on the night.
yeah. But the point is that the Suns, when the issue is that when a player or a five or stretch five is in the opponent side, the Suns have problems, right?
Yep.
Nick Richards, as good as an interior defender he's a you can't play drop coverage,
Yeah.
and teams are just going to take advantage of that. He's slow, but yeah, um, again, the Celtics are just in a different level right now, obviously, and like I said, I didn't expect them to win this game.
100%. And you mentioned Kristaps Porzingis too, Kevin. Kind of want to detail on that because he was absolutely phenomenal in this game. And since I do Celtics work, I was talking on my Celtics channel before that game versus the Suns, and we had a special guest. And the special guest actually, called that Kristaps Porzingis would be able to go off due to the fact of the Suns, interior presence not being that great, them having those kind of issues. I feel like Bol Oso Godaro are kind of the only ones, and maybe even Kevin Durant, that could kind of match up with Kristaps Porzingis on this Suns team once again. And I feel like for Coach Bud, if they wanted to at least compete or win this game, they would have to strip their normalities of their rotation and kind of go a little bit different to kind of beat this squad. Unfortunately, that's not what they did. But yeah, Kristaps Porzingis was absolutely dominant. Jaylen Brown was playing really well. And unfortunately for Ryan Dunn, a lot of people want to come at him for not being that great on these defenders, but he had a tall task in front of him. He did the best he can. I'm not mad at him at all.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a Boston team that was missing Jason Tatum, as you have mentioned. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there was a stat that was shown in the ESPN broadcast at the time, wherein the Celtics is not a good interior team offensively. So if they're not that good and their points, mostly majority of their points come from behind the arc, what do you do when they're hitting all those shots? What do you do, Bruce?
So unfortunately, there's really nothing you can do. It's just what I've witnessed as a fan. There are just games where this team just gets hot, and there's just nothing that the opposing they are just praying that the Avalanche quarter ends. Because for the Celtics, they usually have like you saw in the Suns game where they absolutely erupt from 3-point range to start off the game, right? Like they're not missing, they're hitting
Yeah.
every shot. Then you'll see them cool down a
Well,
little
they
bit in
would,
the
of course. The Suns are not defending them. They were like 8 feet away from the shooter. Oh goodness.
well, that is true. That is true. But like they're making their shots. They're kind of getting in rhythm. Then they cool off a little bit in the second. You see them kind of come back down to earth. But then once again in that third, fourth quarter, you see it kind of just once again kind of bringing back to life. And I think the Suns, really struggled from 3-point range in that game as well as a team. I'm pretty sure. So that's also a kind of discrepancy. The Suns made 13 threes, shooting 31%, while the Celtics made 42%, while they made 22 threes. So Celtics 11 more attempts, but 8 more threes made, which is a clear difference in that variance of scoring and why it was so high
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that is certainly the key there. I mean, if you're gonna take away the 3-point shot and just force them, to dribble, drive, and get their points from the paint, which is like the broadcast said, are not their great, not great. Basically, the
Yep.
Celtics are not great in that area. Do you think that's possible? Because I saw the ball movement was really crisp for this Celtics team, and I'm not sure if you can play, like if you can force them to just go inside. And if they go inside, they have Chris Stapps and they have Al Horford who can play in the post, right?
Yep.
So there's no really weakness that you can highlight in here, even though
Yeah.
yeah,
I feel like the only really weakness with this Celtics team, like you kind of ins- instilled, is they top to bottom have every hole filled, and that's like a clear difference when covering the Celtics team and covering the Suns team that I noticed. Right, like you look at the Suns, not to go off topic, but they have Colin Gillespie, Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal. They all do the same thing. They all shoot, they all score, they all do that. Where if you look at the Celtics, they have those type of players, but Peyton Pritchard's that guard that brings the ball up and commands the offense. Sam Hauser's the catch and shoot shooter on the wing. They have different roles for these type of players, and they live up to those roles. And I think for the Celtics, their main weakness to really stop this team is either their bench getting cold versus some good teams, because we've seen that through the season, or I think it's truly their health. I think that if healthy, that once again, this team kind of, like we said, is just in another league. They pick up for each other. They have that good coach. They know what roles they need to play. It's kind of scary when you look at it compared to the
yeah,
NBA.
yeah. And speaking of healthy, Kristaps Porzingis wasn't all that healthy during
Mm-hmm.
that last finals run, but they kind of cakewalked into the championship. So I don't know. I mean, I think the league has to be just patient until this roster becomes so expensive to keep.
Yep.
And I think that's our only hope for the Suns. And by that time, Victor Wembanyama has already taken over the league. So
Yeah.
if there's a window to win a championship, I think it's going to be this next 1 to 2 years
Mm-hmm.
for the Suns, certainly. But yeah, let's just go over the stats here for the Celtics. They were led by Chris Stapps. Of course, we mentioned him, 30 points with 4 of 10, or not, sorry, 4 or 5 shooting from 3. And then you had Jalen Brown with the I'd say silent 24 points. And Al Horford had it 16. Derek White had 16. Drew Holiday had it 16. Oh my God, throughout the board. The only person who did not score was Jordan Walsh, and he had like what, 6 minutes.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Jason Tatum, of course, is out or was out, and then over at the Sun side, you had KD adding 30 points. You had Nick Richards at 10. Devin Booker, this was the start of his struggle, or this game was the start of the current struggle that he's on, 14 points, and then Colin Gillespie added 5. Tyus Jones added 8. Also had 6 and 2. Oh yeah, and then Cody Martin with 8 points. So you can kind of see the difference in terms of the supporting cast as well, and how consistent they are. And credit to Joe Mazzulla as well, right?
Yep.
For the Celtics team. Sometimes it's not the players that you have; it's the implementation of the offensive system or the system as a whole, defense, offense, or whatever, right?
Oh yeah,
Which
you could say that with this Suns team right here.
well, a lot of people just says, th- the Suns have players that have overlapping skills, and that's true to some degree. But I think, a lot of it has to do with coaching as well, the system
Yep.
that's been implemented, and I think what's missing for Bud's system, as he had in the past, is a shooting big, and I think that's been emphasized before, and the Suns couldn't find a shooting big. Yeah, I'd love a Sam Hauser.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved for them to get a shooting big to kind of cater to Mike Budenholzer's needs. You know what I mean? As it's one of his specialties for this Suns or for his coaching style. But yeah, I think the roster construction and kind of how you mentioned it perfectly. Joe Mazzulla knows how he wants to run this team and has the roster built to how he wants to run this team. I think there's a miscommunication with that with Mike Budenholzer in this front office, and that's also led to why the Suns haven't been as productive as we liked as
Y-
well.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to say hi to Mr. Saul. What's up to you too? And we're missing Jake, so there you go. So, and as Saul said, exactly what I've been saying. Da would have fit this team well. So I don't know. For Da, what do you think of a DA fit in this uh, Budenholzer system, Bruce?
I think he would be. I think he wouldn't be that bad. I mentioned in my latest Bright Side article that Booker needs that kind of like athletic, offensively styled big to play alongside with him in the pick and roll to kind of help him. And I think a player like Aiton would do that. We saw that when they, played for a little while for those first couple of years. Obviously, there were issues with Aiton and stuff like that beforehand with this team and stuff. But I think that the Suns did move off of Aiton maybe a little bit too prematurely. Maybe the relationship was too tarnished to be repaired at that point. But I would have wished that they utilized him in Frank Vogel's team and kind of see what he could have brought in. And if he had worked, who knows, maybe he would have been able to work with Budenholzer, and I think would have been a better fit than either Nick Richards and or Yusuf Nurkic.
I think so too, and I think Aiton is closer to developing a three-point shot than obviously Nurkic and as well as
Yes.
Nick Richards right now. So, but I don't. I think what the most um, I think what's unspoken is that I don't know if you saw the introductory of Aiton with the Blazers team
I
when
don't
he
think.
first got there. There was something that was reported that he used the words or the phrase, "I wanted to thank the Suns for handling this professionally or silently." So it kind of looked like he requested a trade
Okay.
from the Suns. So you can't really, you have to give that to the players, especially
Hmm.
if the same case with Jimmy Butler. It was he asked for a trade, and when Pat Riley didn't give him one, he just turned to shit um, on that. I'm not sure if it was that toxic as reports say, but obviously could have happened with Aiton in there.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then let me ask you this about the Celtics, Bruce. We're not yet done on the Celtics.
Yes.
Given the roster, right? The roster and how they play, I guess you can kind of understand why people questions the stardom of Jason Tatum. What is your take on that?
I don't like those people. I think that Jason Tatum has proved himself multiple times as a Celtic star. I know a lot of people that kind of watch the NBA kind of focus on their team. I know a lot of Suns fans kind of focus just on them, but from watching both, I can tell you that Jason Tatum does it all for the Celtics throughout the finals and the playoffs. He was the leading player in every statistical category. So points, assists, steals, rebounds. He was doing it for that Celtics team in the finals, even though Jaylen Brown won the finals MVP because he was controlling the pace. He was getting those rebounds with Porzingis being out. He was setting up that offense. And I think a lot of people view this game as, oh, this guy went and got 30. This guy went and got 40. Oh, he's the best player. But it's not all just about that and scoring and percentages and stuff like that. And Tatum has those games where he's obviously very effective as a scorer. Sometimes he doesn't. But in those other nights where he's not, he's doing other things. He'll have close to a triple-double or have 10 rebounds and 8 assists with 15 points, and he'll with 2 steals. He does all the other little things as well. And Tatum, meanwhile, plays in bench lineups where you saw with or you didn't see in that game, but when they play the Celtics again, hopefully you will see he runs in bench lineups with just the unit. So they'll take out all the starters and they'll run Tatum with Shireman, Namus Keita, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, or Torrey Craig, and Tatum will excel in those minutes and lead those players to playing better in those minutes. So not only does he, I guess, help out the starting lineup, but helps out the players around him on that bench unit and lifts up their praise and lifts up their value as well when he's on that secondary unit with them. So with both of those and his defensive play, I think that he's a top 5 player in the NBA for sure.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for bringing up that Jason Tatum playing with the bench guys, right? And because that's been what Budenholzer is trying to get with Devin Booker. When the start of the second quarter, when KD's in the bench, obviously Booker is out there to still have one of the best offensive players to hope to carry this team, right? But in the last few games, even in the Milwaukee Bucks game, right, he was kind of too passive in terms of hunting for his shots, and in the 3 games in a row, his totals are not great. So we kind of hope that Devin Booker at this stage of the season, right, takes more of a different approach and hunt for his shots, because I know that he's been passing well, but the job is to score, right? Make the defense guess. Maybe when you take a double team, then go ahead and pass to an open man. So that's what I kind of hope to see with Devin Booker moving forward, especially after these last 2 or 3 games that he's been down. I tweeted earlier during the game, come on, snap the fuck out of it.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people on social media, and a lot of people have kind of felt that about Devin Booker because they see him as this playbook, right? Like playmaking book with Tyus Jones now out of the lineup with no Bradley Beal, and it has been working. He has been helping getting Kevin Durant to his spots. They've been working a nice 2-man game in this starting lineup, which has led the Suns, once again to be on that high horse of let's keep these players like I'm on right now. But obviously, with that comes Devin Booker, not being aggressive as a scorer, not trying to find his shots. And with no Bradley Beal, he has to be able to do that. He has to be that secondary scorer. They have to have him and Durant being able to get, 20 points, specifically going against top teams like the Celtics, like the Timberwolves. And if he's not hunting for that shot or not trying to find that for the Suns, then there's a clear missing offensive focal point. And then that's what leads the Suns kind of being pushed into more of a hole.
Right. Then I don't know if Bud's going to try to interchange that with Kevin Durant exiting early in the first quarter and then starting with him in the second quarter just to get some offense going in the second quarter. But I think KD was asked about this after the Celtics game. What does he think sitting that long at the start of the second quarter and just coming in at the let's say 6-minute mark, right, when it's already too late. So yeah. Well, it's either Book is going to change his approach or Budenholzer is going to change his rotations once again. So yeah, and then let's move on to the the Minnesota Timberwolves game here. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I think, has won 8 straight, including the sweep from last season and sweeping them again in the regular season matchup. My head is aching on this game. Let me just grab something here.
Yeah, you're good. So, to my knowledge, and I'll say this right now, the Timberwolves are the Suns' kryptonite, right, ladies and gentlemen? We have seen it through these last couple weeks, years. last season, the Timberwolves just get the best of the Suns. And I don't know if it's Anthony Edwards gets some side of, momentum builder going up against Kevin Durant. I don't know if Julius Randle has a vendetta versus the Phoenix Suns where, he has something against them. But clearly, this Phoenix Suns team can just not handle the Minnesota Timberwolves. 124-109 win for the Timberwolves, in which the Suns, like Kevin and I mentioned, saw some struggles here offensively. We saw Durant 23, 6, 2, 2, and 2, doing his best to keep this team in the game. But Devin Booker was scoreless in the first half, 10 points and 6 assists with 1 steal, 4 for 14 from the field goal. That is not what you want to see out of your second best player. 0 for 6 from 3-point range. Devin Booker, not great game from the bench. We saw Big Meal, if you remember who Big Meal is, Royce O'Neal, come up clutch, 7 threes for the Suns, getting into some action alongside Kevin Durant. But besides Durant, Royce O'Neal, and the man of the day, the guy that we'll be definitely highlighting in a little bit, Colin Gillespie, who had a career high 22 points and 10 assists and 5 rebounds with the steal. No one on the Suns had more than 10 points. There were 4 players on the Suns who had 4 points: Kevin Durant, Colin Gillespie, Royce O'Neal, all with 20 plus. Devin Booker with 10 on the awful shooting night. And then Ryan Dunn, the next highest scorer, with 9. So once again, offense not really there for the Phoenix Suns. Just a tough overall kind of execution. And like Kevin mentioned, we want to see Devin Booker be more aggressive, specifically in these games versus these better teams, versus these teams that have, that offensive firepower that can kind of combat with the Suns. And when you have a guy like Julius Randle, who's just bodying you, scoring at you down low, absolutely just taking it to you within, you need another guy to kind of step up and deliver like Devin Booker. And that unfortunately did not happen last night.
Exactly. So this Minnesota Timberwolves really is. I said this about the Rockets too, but the Minnesota Timberwolves are just is something of a kryptonite to the Suns.
Yep.
Um, they're not necessarily young,
Mm-hmm.
but they are physical, and
Yes.
that's the Suns' big kryptonite all season long. When things get tough, they are getting pushed around. They lose their composure, and yeah, and that's the same story here with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we can't. I don't want to discuss this game anymore because it hurts. But did did Edwards come back second half? I missed the second
I
half because I know it's over.
he only played 27 minutes, so I would guess that he did come back, but probably didn't play much. Um,
Okay.
what I was gonna say, kind of to what you did too, is 100% they are the kryptonite, and we see with this Suns team, right, that when they go up against good defensive teams, like you mentioned, Houston, Minnesota, they can bring that physicality, they can blitz, and they can completely scare this Phoenix Suns team, run them off their momentum, their rhythm offensively, and it's just turnovers. It's just not looking good for the Phoenix Suns, and that's all due to, again, roster construction. You have, when the Suns' best defensive players or defensive engines are Ryan Dunn, Oso Iguodala, and Cody Martin, that is good, right? It's nice to see that your rookies are having some impact. You didn't draft any duds, but you need to have guys or key role players if you're going to be competing for a championship that are playing better than them. Those can't be your best role players. You know what I mean? Your 2
Exactly.
rookies and a guy that was acquired just at the draft and has only played like 8 games. It was out for a month. Those can't be like your difference makers. You know what I mean? And unfortunately for the Suns, that's just the pickle and decision, like the way that they're in. And that's what's, I think, also hindered them so much. Because if they had 1 or 2 more quality role players around Kevin Durant or Colin or Devin Booker, I think they would be okay.
And King Nacho finds a way to
King Nacho's
blame
here.
Real softness rubbed off on the whole team, and can't say I agree, but thank you for your comment, King Nacho. And I don't think that you were here earlier. I read your comment in our post questions to submit to K Ray. It was hilarious, but I am not gonna ask that. But thank you very much for your question. So, yeah, but going back, um, I want to go back to Devin Booker on this game, right? Because franchise players, as Booker is supposed to be, right? despite the physicality, despite the defense, tough defense, and I've made excuses for him before. I'm a Devin Booker stan,
Yeah.
and I would not hurt my king, but that sounds so gay. But um, the thing about this is that when you look at the other, franchise players, you have Luka Doncic, you have SGA, who's a free throw merchant, I think. And then you have Anthony Edwards, even Jason Tatum is right there, right? Franchise players, they find a way to be effective despite the physicality. Luca, his whistle is so friendly, and more friendlier right now because he's on a Laker jersey. But he finds a way to get those whistles, and go to the free throw line. I'm not seeing that on Book. I don't know what's going on. Um, I mean, he can do it, but I don't see it this season, right? It's like the mentality has shifted for Devin Booker, or he's not, or maybe he's not buying anymore. This Budenholzer, and call it quits. But he just had a 41-point game last week, right?
Yep.
Or last 2 weeks ago. But what's going on with Devin Booker? Right? That's the question.
I don't know. I don't really know what's going on with Devin Booker. I feel like he's just. I don't.
I tell you what,
Okay.
if it's just a struggle, it's a bad time
Yes.
to be struggling this much, right? But there's got to be something. Don't
I
you
don't
think?
think. I was gonna say I don't think there's much like I think you kind of hit it. I think it's just a little bit of a struggle because like we've said, like we've seen him be dominant with this Suns team over these last couple of stretches where he's really commanded and has worked as this playmaker and facilitator. I think he's just going through a little bit of a cold stretch, and unfortunately for Suns, social media, Kevin, we're on there. We see it all day. It's just
Yeah.
bickering back and forth all day, and it just needs to stop at this point. I let out a tweet yesterday. Stop the
Yeah.
standing. We're fans of this team. Let's
The
just
team.
respect. They're a team. We like both players. We like not everybody on the roster, but we like this roster, this construction. And if they want to win together, and we know they can, we want to care about the team.
Yeah, and King Nacho has emphasized $50 million of maybe you could get a couple of elite role players.
I
with
would agree with
I
that.
agree. I agree.
The Celtics have two elite role players in Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis who make a little bit over $50 million, but roughly right around there. And not saying you need those two kind of key impact players, but a player to that magnitude and maybe one a little bit less would not hinder the Suns in any capacity.
Well, I mean, I'd love me a Derek White.
Yes,
That's an elite role player to kind of have. But yeah, let's just get over with this
Yes.
Timberwolves game here. But let's just answer some, chats here. So there's a lot of for Michael P. There's a lot of call for Coach Bud firing, but I think it's more of a personnel problem. And I think that Bradley Beal is the only solution to freeing up salary and flexibility to get a stronger roster. And to some degree, I agree. But Bruce and we have talked about this in the backstage before we started the show. With the Suns maybe releasing Micic, was it? And Cody Martin would get the Suns under that second apron and just being on the first one, and have some flexibility over there. You don't have to necessarily let go of Beal, because I think that's much more difficult than we can say. Obviously, they could have traded him this trade deadline, but no takers. That that no trade clause is certainly a no starter in terms of conversations. But yeah, what do you think, Bruce?
So I would agree that this Coach Bud front office rotation thing, I think, is a combination of a lot of things. And I think we'll kind of see that through the end of the season, right? When we get the conclusion and kind of figure out where the Suns end up. Are they in the play-in? Did they make the play-in? Did they even make the playoffs? Or are they out of the play-in? Because that will truly determine, I think, how aggressive this team is with their front office and with their coaching and their rotations and stuff like that. I do want to mention the second part as well. You said trading other players. So yeah, the Suns can figure out a way to, do that. I believe that they can keep Martin still and trade someone at the deadline if they were to have someone on contract to kind of free up some salary and get underneath in that first apron. And that should be kind of the main goal of this Suns team. Like we mentioned, that was their goal this offseason or this free agency was to get below the first apron or get into the first apron. And I think that's kind of the direction this team needs to be more flexible, because we saw this offseason that they needed to desperately make these moves and they couldn't because of those restrictions.
For sure. And I want to ask you something, but it's slipping in. It's slipping. Trying to get it. I'm sorry, guys. What lineups would you guys like to see
Okay.
going forward? What do you think, Bruce?
So I'm liking, obviously, the implementations of these rookies and Cody Martin. One key thing that we have seen with these lineups once again, and this is what I mentioned last week with Jake, was when Grayson Allen and Bradley Beal come back from these injuries, once again, there's going to be more guards, and Coach Budenholzer is going to play them. And what we're seeing once again is the Suns in these last couple of games will throw out Grayson and throw out Royce, and both of them will go, 2 for 5. And you're just like, all right, well, what did they really add? Nothing. So I don't really want the Suns to be running these 3-guard rotations. No more Tyus and Grayson Allen out on the court, right? Let's stop running these redundant things where both players can get hunted on defense and don't provide on offense unless, Grayson kind of can play off ball, but Tyus can't. So if Booker's bringing the ball up and them 3 on the court, Tyus is just sitting in the corner, Grayson's just sitting in the corner. Tyus is doing nothing for a whole possession. I would like to see Martin get some of those more minutes, and he has been over these last couple of games. So I like him making that key impact off the bench. I'd say Booker, Dunn, Durant, depending, like if you're playing a 3-point shooting team, Oso. If you're not, Nick Richards. I like how they're handling the big man group, but I would limit those Tyus, Grayson, and Royce minutes. I've been saying kind of give Royce and Grayson kind of the benefit of the doubt, kind of split theirs as they play a very similar role on offense. Just if you need more size, kind of go Royce. If you need a little bit more defense, you're going up against a bigger team. If you need more shooting or scoring, or one of them having a hotter night, go with Grayson. And then same thing kind of with Tyus. If Beal does come back, kind of splitting their minutes in that backup point guard role to kind of, initiate that offense. Because I think, once again, the Suns have too many of these players that play that same role. They have 4 guys that technically could be scorers or shooters for their bench unit that they want to play. And they don't have enough to play all that because they have to play Martin. They have to play Oso. So they got to kind of get creative with splitting those minutes, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I think my lineups would be dependent matchup, right? Or matchup dependent.
Yes.
Like you said there, you'd go with Royce O'Neal if you need more size. But I really like the injection of the youth that the Suns have been doing lately. I'd go with Colin. How many games has Colin still left?
So Colin has till the end of the season.
Till the end of the season.
Yes.
And then if he's gonna start the rest of the way, I wouldn't complain about that. You have Book, of course, and then KD. I would be matchup dependent in terms of who's starting with Nick Richards or Oso Iguodala. If you have a team that switches a lot and have like a big man who can play or who can shoot outside, I'd go with Oso. But if it's a more traditional big in the starting lineup of on the other side, I'd go with Nick Richards.
100%.
Yeah, so that would be my lineup. I'm not certainly like a CBA guy, but so I cannot answer this. But do you have any thoughts on this, Bruce?
So I don't know off the top of my head. I know that you can go back over it because I just think you, like Michael was saying, you just have to wait a year to go back over it. There's also restrictions with being in the second apron too, and penalties and stuff like that. Not that the Suns are, well, in both. But if the Suns aren't able to escape the second tier, there could be penalties for them in the future. But the Suns don't have their draft picks, so I don't know if those penalties will really affect them.
But I thought, in terms of going back to the second apron, you can't, or the first apron, you can then aggregate salaries to make trades.
Yes.
So at least that's a big thing as well.
And we get the
Um,
mid-level exception too, so that will be allowed to sign someone for around $12 million and be able to
right.
get a pretty solid, role player contract in on this team as well, which would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. And yes, hey, JC, we missed you. You were late, and you too, Suns Fever. You guys. And since you missed it, Jake is not here, so don't complain. I'm the host. Okay. So there we go. Okay, so let's do some drinking and dancing. Bruce, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Let's get it.
What's the name of that nightclub of yours again?
You talking about the Boom Boom Room?
Yeah, the Boom Boom Room. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, awesome. We'll be dancing over there, and oh my goodness, here comes Josh, Star 5, the main, the guy to thank for, of course, the Boom Boom Room dancing. So hey, Josh, it's been a while. Thank you for jumping in. Love to see you here. Of course, coming back, but yeah, today in the Boom Boom Room, we're gonna talk about a couple of things, right, Bruce? And
Yes.
first off, the case for Colin Gillespie, being converted into a standard contract. Does he deserve a spot? Bruce, go ahead.
100%. 100%. As clear as day. I know John Voita has been tweeting out every time the Suns were, hot on that record. They were 4-0 with Gillespie in the starting lineup before they started losing, ladies and gentlemen. So 4-2 with Gillespie in this lineup. Once again, last night, we failed to mention this, but 20 points, 10 assists. Absolute fantastic performance from Colin Gillespie last night. One of the bright spots from that loss. And he's definitely warranted himself a contract. I wrote about it for Last Word, but there are some Suns on this roster that don't play, don't get any playing time, that play a role as a guard. And I think the Suns should definitely bring Colin, not for the fact that obviously if they make the play in or if they make the playoffs, they're definitely going to need his help, obviously, in these lineups, but also for the fact that other teams around the league, right, are watching Colin Gillespie on a two-way contract and saying, man, this guy is not worth a two-way contract, and he is worth way more than that. And we would think Colin Gillespie could fit in, maybe help our style of play. So the Suns, a team that doesn't have a lot of youth already, desperately needs to keep building on this youth. We've seen the Valley Suns as well have been very, very dominant. They made the playoffs in their inaugural season. So the youth movement has been moving great in this direction of Phoenix so far. So why not invest in it more? Get another, youngish star player that has that untapped potential. Bring him in. He's clearly worked with this team. And even if he's not starting next season, he can clearly bring a quality role as a point guard for this roster.
Exactly. And Star 05, Josh is backing you up on this one. And we kind of talked about this in the backstage. Like Colin Gillespie and Tyus Jones, they're basically, I don't want to say, coming from the same cloth, but they're both 6'1", right? And of course, Tyus Jones' averages are better because of the games, the number of games that he has played already, and banking on those stats. While Colin Gillespie is, just had his run in the recent weeks. But in terms of shooting, Colin Gillespie is at 45% 0.7, sorry, 45.7% from three, and a better free throw shooter. Granted that it's less attempts than Tyus, as we've mentioned. But what do you see in Colin Gillespie that makes Tyus Jones, I don't want to say expandable, but what makes you think that he's worth a spot more than, let's say, Tyus Jones?
Okay. So
Because we know Jones is going to be, you know, not going to be re-signing with the Suns. We know that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's kind of evident here that obviously with his role with the Suns, it's not hasn't lived up to what he thought it was going to be, or what the Suns particularly thought it was going to be either with this roster. So I do believe that he will not be returning. But you mentioned Gillespie. I think that the main thing that he brings for this Suns team is just a better fit, and we kind of talked about that with the implications of Ryan Dunn, Oso Kadaro, Cody Martin. This team just needs those better fits. It needs those different type of players, and that's why at the deadline I thought that they definitely should, if they didn't move off Bradley Beal, should have moved off of Grayson Allen to get another need, another wing defender, something else added into this rotation, because clearly they have enough offense already, and it's being shown even within their two-way players. But a guy like Gillespie kind of has that. I know on social media, a lot of people are talking about that like Nash-esque type of player type, where he has that ability to kind of get to the rack. He has that playmaking ability, as well as we saw with 10 assists last night, but also is a solid three-point shooter. But I think the best thing and the key thing that works with Colin Gillespie is that he can work off ball. And I think Devin Booker can work off ball as well, which kind of coordinates with both of these guys. But with Tyus Jones, he is not the best off ball player. We mentioned when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, and when he was in the starting lineup with the Suns at some points, he'd just be sitting in the corner getting abused on defense and targeted. And that's kind of led to a little bit of his fall. I also think in the secondary lineup, he succeeds a little bit better due to the fact that he can kind of command that offense as well. He can kind of distribute, he can kind of be that vocal leader and be that kind of commander in charge for that guard room, specifically with guys like Grayson and Bradley Beal out as well.
Oh gosh. Hey, Jake is having fun. He's gonna have his party tonight. I think he didn't answer my question earlier if it was today or tonight, but he's gonna have some fun. He's gonna be back next week, Justin. But thank you for your comment. And yeah, by the time that the Suns have, let's say, have to make that decision. Of course, obviously, Tyus Jones is going to be still in that lineup end of the season. If the Suns do make the playoffs or the play-in, who do you think is going to be cut?
Ooh, so that's
King
tough.
Nacho has this
Yeah,
idea.
So King Nacho brought up someone that I mentioned in my article. So I mentioned three people I think that the Suns could look out for. I think it'd have to be another guard, because just they have so many guards, they can't waive a Mason Plumlee, or a Bull or something like that. But it's all going to depend on what Matt Ishbia wants to do, right? Like, first, you can look at contracts. Players like Damian Lee, like King Nacho mentioned, or Monte Morris haven't been getting much playing time, but could be traded or could be waived due to the fact that they only make $2 million. I would think that Monte would stay just because he's brought a valuable role off the bench for this team and kind of shows he can, even if Tyus is in that role now. I'd like to have that extra insurance in case. So I wouldn't like to look at Monte, but he could be someone that could be gone. Damian Lee, like Nacho mentioned, hasn't played much for this Suns team, but I think is a kind of like a veteran guy, someone they want to do right in for him dealing with that injury last year. So I don't think he'll be waived. I think the main man to kind of look out for is another newcomer to the Suns team, and that's Vasily Vasa Micic. However you want to say his name, the Suns will post both on their Twitter, so I don't know. But Vasily, I think, kind of makes sense as once again, he's on a team option and he hasn't been playing. He has rumors back Europe, and Europe is interested in him. And I think that the Suns, even if they accept that team option, won't be able to use it in a trade next year. So I think they're kind of stuck with this contract. So it's kind of cutting ties, or I guess seeing what you have. And clearly we've tried to see what we have with Micic and it hasn't worked. So I think he kind of makes the clear case to be the one.
He's the best candidate.
Yes. And Matt Ishbia doesn't care about money, as we all know. So I'm sure he wouldn't mind close to $8 million compared to $2 million, or at least I hope so.
Yeah. Well, that is certainly in mind that Micic would be the main candidate. I don't know if I want to cut ties with D Lee. D Lee, despite him not playing, he kind of provides that. I better hope that there's something he's providing in the locker room, right? He's a good guy too. And then the second case that we're going to talk about is Cody Martin. Do you want to see Cody Martin back with the Suns team next season?
Yes, I do. And I think a lot of Sun fans as well kind of feel this kind of same resignation with Cody Martin. We mentioned, around the trade deadline when the Suns were interested in Jimmy Butler, that necessarily they didn't need Jimmy Butler, the player, but they needed defense. They needed the type of play style that Jimmy Butler brought into this team, like those defensive wings and that hunting ability. And we're kind of seeing that with Cody Martin. He's been that solid connector with Oso Iguodala and Ryan Dunn on this defense, disrupting those passing lanes. Hasn't looked the best offensively, but to be honest, don't think the Suns need a lot of offensive production from Cody Martin, hitting some open shots here or there, but being locked in on the defensive side and doing those dirty little things that every Suns fan wants to see that no one else is really doing, because Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are picking up for the offensive side of things. I really like it. You mentioned he's on a cheaper contract too, non-guaranteed, similar to Nick Richards, so they can bring him back. And I think that he's kind of on the same value of Okogie, just a little bit better, I would say, just because he can present a little bit more size, has a little bit more of a NBA frame, I guess. So I do like that. And like I mentioned, I think he should be someone that should be brought back regardless, because even if his role is kind of not as impactful, he could still bring that off the bench for a team that really needs it in the wing department.
For me, getting back Cody Martin especially has shown that he can be great in terms of defense, right? His shooting is a little bit bit of a
Mhm.
suspect, I should say. But don't you think that having Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, and Cody Martin, of course, Cody Martin, like I said, less shooting, is kind of redundant in terms of the skills that they bring in?
Well,
Can you have too many defenders, let's say, in one team,
yes
and
and
catch and shoot guys?
yes and no. I mean, I feel like they're kind of like it's like when you look at those three players, it's kind of like a Venn diagram. You know what I mean? Like you got Grayson on one side, the all offense, Martin the defense, and then Royce O'Neal's kind of the mix of both. You know what I mean? When he's
Yeah.
playing at his peak, because we've seen the streakiness of Royce this season, clear as day,
Yes.
with just looking at this last week, right? But those, I think that that's also a thing to kind of mention as well, because you look at all three of these guys once again. They all kind of, I guess, overlap a little bit, but still kind of present those same qualities. So if they do bring, I wouldn't expect all three of those guys to be brought back. I would expect the Suns to kind of teeter with this rotation, because not only has the starting lineup not been, to perfection in, like, I guess, like the players playing in their right positions, like for the best needs, but also, like we mentioned, the bench has too many of the same player. So they kind of have to, I guess, replace some of those and fill those needs of the starting lineup with those bench guys, and then kind of fill in the rest of the bench after that. I think that would be kind of the smart thing to do.
Okay. Well, speaking of one of those three is, I mean, Royce, we know for a fact that he's streaky, but Grayson Allen has been playing horribly ever since he came back from
Yes.
the injury, only averaging 2.7 points over the last three this week. And the 3-point shooting is just abysmal, right?
Yep.
So right now, the candidate to be traded away would be Grayson Allen. As much as streaky as Royce O'Neal can be, as we have seen, as we have mentioned, he does bring some size and defensive versatility. That Grayson is above average defender, but if you need that size, you go with Royce O'Neal. So I think the candidate would be Grayson Allen, which is too bad because he's a new dad, and moving with a baby is not fun. I should
Yeah,
say.
I would agree, and you feel bad because, like, Grayson's also a player that, I guess hasn't really had like a home for a long time in the
Yeah.
NBA. He's a guy that's moved around through the NBA as well. He's played obviously for Memphis, for Milwaukee. Now he's playing for Phoenix. So, and he provides a valuable role for the Suns, as we saw last year. He was one of the best 3-point shooters. He still is a good player. So when you look at it, it is tough to kind of like trade away someone good. But when you look at the, I guess, needs, and similar to Nurkic, right? Like Nurkic, solid backup big, but making $18 million with the Suns being in the second apron, they couldn't afford that anymore. You know what I mean? It
Right.
kind of got to that point. And I feel like the Suns are kind of going to be getting into that territory next season or this off season with Grayson Allen, specifically because you see so many teams around the league as well value 3-point shooting of how transcendent it's been. And Grayson Allen will have that value on the market as a tradable contract, making $15-16 million. It's not too much. It's not too little. There will be teams, I guess, interested in, I guess, could give something for the Suns either to fall below into that first apron or potentially giving them some extra potential draft capital, which could help out with depending on the direction this team decides to go as well. So I like it.
Yeah, I beg the teams to give us at least the second round.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we're almost time here, and but we have to choose one player of the week. And Bruce, let me ask you, who's your player of the week where the Suns are 1-3?
So it's might not come to a surprise, but it's going to be KD just due to the fact that even in this 1-3 mess, KD has still found to be consistent for this Suns team. Maybe not as consistent as he was last week, obviously leading the Suns to 3-0, dropping 40 almost in every single game, but being able to drop 38 versus the Milwaukee Bucks is just another clear sign of how his age is just not affecting him at all. And that's, I think, one of the big issues with this Suns push with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker is, the age, they're getting older. They're not going to be able to win in this stacked Western Conference, but clear as day, they can when they have the right players around them. And we've seen that even if it is against weaker opponents. I'm sure if they had the right rotations and the right players around them, they would be beating these good teams or be even in close contentions with these good teams. So I got to give my tip of my hat to Kevin Durant and once again, preach. Whether it's on Brightside, whether it's on Suns Planet Pod, whether it's on Suns Digest, the Suns should not trade Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I agree. I certainly agree. And like I said in the last pod that I was here, you only trade Kevin Durant if there's no more option on Bradley Beal, right? This offseason. I'm not sure how much into that goes to KD. Like, does he prefer to stay or not, or does he want to be traded? But if I'm the Suns, if he wants to stay, I would do anything to trade Bradley Beal and let Kevin Durant stay and build around those two guys. And but yeah, my player of the week as well would be KD, 30.3 points per game over the last three, and shooting over. Oh gosh, where is it? 68% from three. So, he will have turnovers because he's gonna be doubled a lot. He would be pushed around a lot, and in that slim frame of his, he's gonna lose the ball. But that is all being erased by the point production that he's been giving night in and night out. So that is KD for me. So Bruce, where can the folks find you?
Okay, so you guys can find me. It's going to be a long one once again, but you can find me, Suns Planet Pod, as always. You can find me on Twitter at Bruce Velez and at Blue Sky at Bruce Velez, where I post Celtics content and Suns content for Digest Media at Celtics and Suns Digest on YouTube. I also write for the Phoenix Suns for Brightside and for Last Word. So if you want more of that information, definitely check me out there. We had some good articles come out this week for Brightside that did some good traction. So I appreciate the support from everyone.
Yes, everyone, please do check Bruce's work out on those platforms and mainly on Brightside. Those are quality contents, I tell you. Every writer from contributor from the bright side of the sun, produces quality work, and that includes me. I have some work stuff done with the bright side, although I haven't written in months. But you can check those out. And just to remind you before we go, Kevin Ray will be on the show. It will be a pre-recorded show, so send your questions in before Tuesday. Tuesday is our recording day, so we'd love to ask your questions to him. And it's gonna be me and Bruce as well, with K Ray, because I think Jake's still gonna be hangover from his party. So I hope you guys like my hosting. Sorry, it's my first time in a long while. I had my own pod before, but didn't have this kind of audience. So I hope we did a great job for you guys, and thank you. And again, don't forget to support us. Hit like, subscribe, that, buy us beer, whatever. Help us out. And thanks so much, people, and be kind to one another, especially on social media.
Yes.
Bye,
Yes.
guys.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay with us as the Suns get set to shine here on their home court.
Here's Perry. Cigar Hurd. Here's the jump shot. Good! It's good!
Al McCoy with you courtside. Comes up a three.
Suzanne! He ties it.
Hey, D.A. Al and Tim up here.
happy
buddy.
birthday!
Yeah.
I know it's the moment. Happy birthday, baby!
Here's Cameron Payne out on top. Durant, three-pointer straight away.
Suzanne! I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone in this arena this afternoon, to all of those that are watching and listening on radio and TV. Thank you for allowing me to tell the story of the Suns for 51 great years. That pretty much wraps things up here. And for one last time, this is Al McCoy saying thanks for being there. Thanks for being with us tonight. And from the Footprint Center here in downtown Phoenix, we'll just say so long for now.